So the other idea I'd like to home in on, there's a few loads actually, of course, but is Eros.
Right.
What do you mean by Eros? And is it the same as Whitehead? And what do you think he means by Eros? And
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Whitehead's understanding of Eros comes from Plato, right? He is sort of a Neo-Platonist in his own way. And I'm not sure I'm qualified to thoroughly explain Whitehead's notion of Eros, but I've certainly been influenced by it, and I can talk about my own concept of it.
Yep.
And that is, Emerson was famous for understanding that every natural fact is in some ways symbolic of some sort of higher or larger spiritual fact. And one of the most fundamental natural facts of the physical universe is the prevalence of energy, right? The amount of energy in the universe is fixed, but it's constantly in motion, and it powers, the biosphere and the cosmological evolution. It's sort of central to all forms of evolution. And in the noosphere, in the realm of human consciousness and culture, these sort of internal realms, we can begin to recognize that there's an equivalent to this external idea of energy or magnetism, or the electromagnetic spectrum, if you will. And that is the idea of values and things that create value, again, concretized as this, at least conceptually, as the good, the true, and the beautiful. And that this form of energy, it attracts consciousness at every level, right? The sort of the difference between life and non-life, even at the cellular level, is that life is striving to survive and reproduce. It's attracted by some kind of primitive form of goodness, right? Primitive value, survival value itself is a primitive form, can be understood as this kind of magnetism of value. And then with the emergence of humanity and the human free will that goes with that, we are awakened to a higher level, a new sort of dimension of value, both in our ability to perceive it and our ability to create it, right? There's what I like to call a metabolism of value. So in other words, we can appreciate that which is beautiful, but when we actually engaged in creating beauty in whatever venue we might find, that energy moves through us, right? We're motivated to express beauty by our experience of it, right? So that the good, the true, and the beautiful are they're like spiritual nutrition, right? We metabolize those forms of spiritual energy, and by taking them in and giving them out, we grow spiritually in the process, and our capacity to experience that which is intrinsically valuable expands in the process. So Eros is this the magnetism or the gravity of what we might call sort of the upward current of the good. So the good, as we talked about in one angle.
Can I just ask you,
go ahead.
Just because it'll maybe inform what you say. So are you saying that this arises with life, Steve?
Well, how much value magnetism works in the realm of cosmological pre-life evolution, that's somewhat technical. I would say that, from a Whiteheadian perspective, or from a pan-interiority, pan-psychism, pan-experientialism, that realm of philosophy where it recognizes that for every external form of natural universe organization, there's a corresponding interior. Right now, that's kind of philosophically woolly. So let me just bracket that for a moment and get back to the idea of we can observe thoroughly that life is striving, right? Like Lynn Margulis, the renowned evolutionary biologist, she wrote a whole book, what is life? And almost every definition of what is life came back, well, that could be satisfied by a thermometer, right? So basically she came to, after struggling, trying to kind of wrestle life into a scientific materialistic frame, she came to the somewhat kind of, exhausted conclusion that life is matter that chooses. And so, that ability to choose, that ability to have a goal and fail, achieving a goal, that's what separates life from non-life.
Okay.
And that we can observe in that activity of all life, this striving to survive and reproduce. Yeah. And then as the biological tree of life complexifies, the sort of the animals that have greater interiority, their sense of purpose becomes widened, and their idea of what it means to survive and reproduce becomes more complex. and encompasses, a greater realm. It kind of the individual interest and the species interest become more intertwined. But then with the emergence of humanity, what I would call the third Big Bang, life being the second and humanity being the third,
Yeah.
We begin to feel this pull of value gravity or value magnetism. And the evidence for that is that unlike animal needs, which can be satisfied relatively, human needs can really never be satisfied, because as soon as we satisfy one level of needs, we awaken to a higher level of possibilities, right? That's kind of the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that we have the creativity and the imagination to develop ourselves beyond our animal conditions, which creates culture, which is a sort of new realm of evolution. And as human culture evolves, human consciousness evolves along with it. So human culture doesn't emerge or evolve inexorably, like some say biological evolution does through natural selection. That is, culture only evolves when people try to make the world a better place, for the most part. I mean, maybe there's occasional accidents, but we're striving to improve the human condition. And it's because of that cumulatively, especially, over the last several centuries, that the human condition has improved immensely, both materially and intellectually. And there's lots more to be done, new emergent problems that have come from that. I mean, that's a complicated discussion in its own right, but just keeping it centered on Eros, I would say that there is a kind of a magnetism. And one way to look at it is sort of being drawn from above by the potential for a better way, by the sort of the gentle persuasion of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And another way is to look at it, from below, which I think where Plato started with the concept, identifying first as this sort of sexual desire, your libido's interest in a beautiful person, that's kind of coming up from below. But according to Plato, and I think Whitehead would agree, that as human consciousness evolves and we awaken to deeper and wider experiences of value, that we begin to feel that it's not just from below. There's also something pulling from above, so to speak. And that's why I like to think of it as a sort of an upward current. The upward current of the good is sort of moving in the opposite of entropy, and we can feel it. And the more we grow, the more we feel its traction.